First, first question which comes to my mind, Rinkesh, looking at your profile, you did one of the most toughest course with chartered accountancy. You work in one of the most valuable company, which is Reliance. You were then, you did your MBA from the India's topmost college, which is IIM Ahmedabad, and currently you're working at world's best management consulting firm, which is McKinsey. What does it take to be in the top of everything?
I think you've sold me a bit too much, Yatharth, but I don't think this was planned or happened. I think it just happened. And what does it take? I think patience is one key because, I always wanted to work, let's say in consulting right after my graduation, but things didn't work out during that time. But eventually it did. So I think we'll delve deeper into what, I did and what I think would be required or what are the ingredients of getting into all of these best quote unquote. But yeah, I think patience is one of the biggest factors that I could, just tell.
Understood. So, Rinkesh and Manuraj, I'll try to, bring in every stage from the, step one from your MBA, when you decided that you want to do MBA to, doing an MBA, and then what happens post MBA, so that, every one of us can relate to your journey and then understand and, take inferences which we can incorporate in our lives. So the first question which comes up, why MBA? Because especially Rinkesh, so you did your chartered accountancy. CA in itself is a degree, which gives you good jobs, good profiles, good knowledge, everything. But post CA working in Reliance, what made you decide that you want to get into an MBA?
So I'll be very honest. So I had sort of this skida in me that I wanted to do my MBA just after my BCom. I was in my third year when I did appear for CAT, and uh, I think things didn't work out during that time, and then I decided to stick with my CA, complete it, and then see how things pan out. But then, luckily, I got a rank, and then I got to work with Reliance Industries in the corporate treasury division. So I was there for 2.5 years, but then I realized I don't want to be stuck there behind like four screens. Wanted to sort of, get into a job which involves not just sitting behind those screens, but involves a lot of other aspects like on-ground problem solving. And, as I mentioned before, consulting was always on my mind. And at that time, I think back in 2017, consulting as a career was not very open to CAs back then. So then I decided, okay, I'll again appear for CAT, and then I got into IMA. And this was one of the primary reasons I wanted to sort of go for an MBA.
Understood.
Yeah.
So what I can draw is, if you want to get into either consulting or any strategic sort of role or a front end role, MBA helps you get that. Is that so?
MBA does help you. The probability increases, but now I think the dynamics have changed. The firms are more open to know non-MBA degrees as well. But still, I think MBA, when you look at a firm or maybe the top, MBBs as you call it,
Right.
McKinsey, BCG, Bain. So even if you just find out like what the people working in those firms have done their graduation or post graduation in. So I think greater than 70 to 80% would be MBA. So I think that explains the bias. So MBA does increase your chances, but I'm not saying that MBA is at most, it's essential for it. But just to increase the chances of getting into the firm, I think MBA is helpful.
Understood. And Manuraj, you did your bachelor's in business administration. So was MBA already a plan when you chose your bachelor's degree, or how was it for you? Why MBA for you?
Right. I think MBA, sort of becomes a necessary second step. So, or rather, I would say that a bachelor's in business is a prelude to doing an MBA. So, an MBA helps you, get more clarity, and probably you also need more clarity to do an MBA. So, it's a bit of a catch-22. And I think there are traditional benefits of doing an MBA, which Rinkesh already mentioned, right, in terms of the kind of roles and career positions which MBAs command. And I think second is I think I would say MBA was always on my radar, but how, when, and where is something, which is a plan which keeps evolving with every passing year. In your second year or third year of college, you think differently. When I went for my MBA, I had almost 4 years of work experience. So my thinking kept evolving every single year. But to answer your original question, MBA was on my radar. Yes.
Understood. Understood. So Manaraj, during your bachelor's, you already knew that you want to get into MBA. So the first step to get into an MBA usually is, appearing for CAT. But you did your MBA from ISB. So what I understand is there is some difference entrance exam. So can you just touch upon that as to, what are the steps to get into an MBA in general and then ISB?
Sure. So I think I'm happy to outline both with the steps to get into uh, a B school, which requires you to take the CAT, is something which I think Rinkesh would be better qualified to answer. As for the ISB, you're required to either take the GMAT or the GRE. But even before you take your exam, there is an application form which you have to fill out, which doesn't require you to submit your GMAT or GRE, or at least back in the day when I did it. So your test scores becomes your second leg of application. And the first one, you have to write a few essays, which, there are some statements that, if, for example, if we were to select you, why should we do that? Or how would you add value to the class cohort? So these are fundamental questions which are very important to understand, analyze, and it gives you also a lot of clarity, and it gives the admission committee immense clarity on why do you want to pursue this program. So it's a very systematized process of getting in. So, I mean, I jokingly tell my friends that, MBA is not a 1 or a 2 year project, it's a 25-year project, because when you apply for, to get into a B school like ISB or IIM Ahmedabad or even Bangalore, Calcutta for that matter, there's a whole process, everything that you've done professionally and personally in your life, it sort of comes back to you. You summarize your achievements and your weaknesses, and, it gives you an opportunity to sort of build onto that. So, to answer your original question about the process, I think there are a few application essays. Then you have to fill out the application form both subjectively and objectively. The subjective bit being, the essays, and the objective bit being your academic scores, which university did you do your undergrad from, and a whole bunch of other information which you have to fill out. And then the admission committee evaluates that and asks you for your test scores, which could be a GMAT or a GRE. And then you have another round, which is the personal interview round, in which again the AdCom, which is almost always, former students or other alumnus or alumni of the Indian School of Business who interview you to understand fundamentally more, and sort of guide you in your journey of selection or non-selection.
Understood. Just taking a step back on, when you had in your mind that you want to get into an MBA, there is IIMs and, other MBA colleges, B schools, and then there is ISB. What I understand is MBA in a normal B school is for 2 years. In ISB, it's a 1 year course. So during that time, were you, first up, what is the difference between the two? Second, were you already very sure that you want to get into ISB, a 1 year course, or how was that for you?
Right. So to answer your original question, so I believe that we have about 680 to 700 contact hours at the Indian School of Business, and we have 32 courses which we are mandated to take, and we have the discretion to take a few more courses. At the IIMs, I think it is 36 courses over a span of 2 years, and I think 740 or 780 contact hours. So I think the ISB's program, in my opinion, is a little accelerated. You're doing essentially the same curriculum, but you come with a lot more work experience. So, you have more fundamental clarity of why do you want to do an MBA, which industry do you want to get into, which sector do you want to get into, what domain expertise you want to build, what are the skill sets that you possess, and what is it that you're looking from your MBA program. So these are some key differences, between an IIM or an ISB. An IIM, I think, attracts students who are 22, 23 years old. I'm not fully sure, and I think Rinkesh would be more qualified to answer that. With ISB, the average cohort comes with about 4 to 6 years of work experience. I think the ballpark is about 4.5 years. And I think that makes the discussions and the value that you get from your peers more nuanced, and you tend to sort of appreciate the body of knowledge that those individuals bring into the classroom, and the discussions are more mature. So I think both are fantastic programs, but I think this is something which I was looking for because I was already, I think, 2.5 or 3 years into my corporate journey when I decided to pursue my MBA. And I think that the program curriculum, of course, is top notch at ISB. Besides that, these are some of the added advantages which I thought will really help me. And by the time I went to do my MBA, I was almost 4 years into my corporate experience. So it blended really well with, my aspirations of pursuing an MBA.
Okay, understood. So what I draw is one of the one of the biggest advantage to get into ISB is that you save 1 year of your life. Is that would that be fair to say?
I think that's a very dehumanized way of looking at an ROI. Honestly, I would say I thoroughly enjoyed my time for 1 year on campus, and if possible, I would love to go back and spend another year. But I think what you're trying to hint at is the opportunity cost of not being in the job market for an additional year. So I think to answer that, yes, of course. So you essentially are market ready or corporate ready in half the time compared to a 2 year MBA program. And with that, you're more equipped. You are already prepared to, you're equipped with both an MBA degree and you have a placement, you have a clarity on what you want to do, and you're working at an accelerated salary, which is the post MBA salary. So it definitely gives you that edge or that advantage. And you are learning everything and more that a 2 year program would teach you. So I think it's absolutely an advantage and a phenomenal standpoint for me personally.
Understood. Understood. So, similar question to you, Rinkesh. You also, cleared your CA. You were working in Reliance. You had 2.5 years of experience there. You cracked IIM Ahmedabad. ISB is also something which is, well within your reach. So, what made you, and you also knew ki, ISB is a 1 year course, MBA, IIM Ahmedabad is a 2 year course. So, what made you choose to spend 2 years in your MBA, where, probably post MBA and ISB graduate and an IIM Ahmedabad or AVC graduate are more or less equal. So, what made you choose IIM Ahmedabad over ISB?
Okay. I think I'll answer that question. I'll just take a step back to your question. So for me personally, I did not decide that I want to go to, let's say, an IMA or ISB before even getting the opportunity to do that. Because when you're applying for an MBA, I think you'll want to, when you're sure that you want to do an MBA, you want to make sure that your pool is larger. And you just can't keep your hopes clinging to just one or two colleges, right? Because the chances of getting into those colleges, I think it's well known that it's a bit of luck also that you managed to make it there. So I think when I started it, I was working full time and I chose not to give GMAT personally because I was looking at doing my MBA from India itself, and B, just prepping for GMAT was not, I thought I'll just prepare for CAT and not any other entrance exam because I did not really have the time to do that. So that is why I stuck to CAT, and I thought if I make it to either of the ABCLs, I would go for it. So wanted to keep my options larger, the sample size or maybe the pool larger, so that the chances for me getting into a program increases. And why a 2 year course? I think and let's say after after getting the offers from, let's say I have an offer from both IMA and ISB, the typical factors that you would look at would vary also from person to person. How do you decide? As Manuraj mentioned, opportunity cost would be the biggest factor to decide between IMA and ISB, because I think both colleges are equal in all aspects mostly. So I think ISB then wins over in terms of opportunity cost of, you save out, as you mentioned, on 1 year. But at the same time, I think IMA, again, you get very, as Manoj mentioned, that you lose out, he still misses 1 year. If given a chance, he'll go back there, right? And if I'm given a chance, I'm again willing to go back for another 2 years to my college. So I think IMA wins there, or IIMS for that matter. But yeah, I think at the start, you should be open to applying to, let's say, top 10, top 20, or whatever is that cutoff for you. And then you should decide basis your options at the end of the admission season, or how many offers you have, and then you try to demarcate or find out differences between colleges. What career do you want to get into? What is the thing that you want to derive out of your MBA? And that is how you make your decisions. So deciding that, I just want to go to an, let's say IME or ISB, and then just giving CAT or GMAT, I think that's a bit dangerous, according to me.
Understood. Understood. Yeah. Okay. A note for the audience: if you have any questions, you feel free to put it on chat box, And in the last, we'll have a proper Q&A session where you can unmute yourselves and directly interact with Manuraj and Rinkesh. So that will be there. All the questions will be taken care of. Manuraj, did you also appear for, like, did you appear for CAT as well, or it was only GMAT and the other exams?
I just took the GMAT. I did not take the CAT.
Okay,
I
okay.
think that stemmed from a clarity that, I want to get some corporate experience. And even if I take the CAT, I knew that it'll only be valid for 1 year. So if I take the CAT, I have to apply in the next cycle and get into a B school. And I'd already secured a placement. And I really wanted to, pursue at least 2 years of corporate career, which ended up being 4 years. I'm grateful for it now. But I always had I thought even if I do the CAT, I will do it eventually. But yeah, I never took the CAT for those reasons.
Okay, okay. So, what I actually wanted to understand was CAT has its first let's, discuss about the CAT exam, its curriculum and, how do we prepare for it? Should we, take classes or, self-studies enough or, matlab, your student entry back. So how did you study for CAT? Rinkesh, if you could, take for CAT and then we'll move to GMAT.
Yeah. So 2017, 2015 was my first CAT attempt when I was in my third year of graduation. I think I gave a lot of hours during that year, during that attempt. So I knew how the dynamics of the exam is and what to expect out of it. But then back in 2019, I think, 2019, I gave my second attempt when I was working full time. During that year, I decided, since I knew most of the basics, so I decided just to go for mock exam. So in CAT, what happens is that there are 3 sections. I don't know if the pattern has changed now, but during our time, it was a 3-hour exam with 3 sections: QA, which is quantitative ability, VARC, verbal ability and reading comprehension, and thirdly was DILR, data interpretation and logical reasoning. And I think so. My guess is that every one of us is strong in at least one of the 3 sections, and some moderate in one section, and your uh, weakness is one section, and mine was, I think, very openly, it was like VARC. My scores used to fluctuate a lot in that section. But if I were to say for a layman who's planning his first CAT attempt, how to prepare for it, the first step would be just to take a mock CAT exam. Just give those sections, give a complete test, and then figure out uh, what your strengths and weaknesses are, because CAT is not like a book-based exam. It's a complete aptitude-based. So you can figure out your aptitude intuitively. How good are you at, let's say, one section, or what you need. So it's not just memorizing things, etc. It's all logical, very aptitude-based. So once you figure out that, okay, I'm very good at this section, I'm not good at this section, so then you charter out your path for the next for your CAT preparation journey. And there are many institutes out there in the market who would who sell all these CAT prep courses. But I chose to go for a self-study exam during my second attempt. Even during my first attempt, it was a self-study one because I thought I could manage that. So you can just gather books, etc., from, or maybe reading material from any of the institutes, Time, Career Launcher, IMS, I don't know, many others are there in the market right now. I think any coaching material would work, and then start just going through what kind of questions, what sort of topics are covered in your exam. And then I think the link is only to give as many mock tests as you can after, let's say, getting hang of the kind of questions or the sort of topics that are covered in your exam. So, and once you start giving your mock test, you just plan it, you strategize how to spend those 3 hours, what you should do, which sections should you cover, how you should plan your time, etc. So giving mocks is the essential part before giving your CAT exam, because mocks help you decide. You have to first sit for 3 hours during the exam, and um, apart from those 3 hours, you have to reach like 2-3 hours earlier at the exam center. So like you have to have your concentration for a 6-hour time frame. So those like giving mocks helps you increase your concentration span.
Understood.
So yeah.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. CAT is conducted once a year or twice? Once
It's once a year.
in
Mostly
November, I think, right?
Yeah.
Usually. Okay. So let's say if our exams is in November 24. So how many months are typically required on an average for an average student to prepare for CAT? Like when should he start to prepare for it?
So again, I would say that would again vary from person to person. So once you figure out, let's say, how good you are at any of the sections, it might not even require 1 month of prep. It might also require a year of prep. It might also require like 6 months. So you have to first figure out how confident you are of the exam. But then on an average, I think 4-5 months is fair amount of time to prepare for it. People start even like people even start like, let's say, a year. They take some people also plan to just focus on their CAD, leaving their jobs, etc. But I sort of personally believe that CAT is an exam which does not require sticking to your books throughout. Some dedicated amount of prep per day is enough. And giving mock test 1 per week is enough to crack it. So coming back to your question, I think 4 to 5 months on an average is a fair amount of time to
Even if you are in a job, 4-5
prepare
months
sufficiently
by
for
2
it.
weekends you
Yeah,
can pull it
yeah.
off.
But then again, just a caveat that it might vary from person to person, given just how confident they are of their
Understood.
aptitude and capabilities.
Understood. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. So going on GMAT, Manuraj, if you can give a maybe a very rough idea based on what Rinkesh mentioned about CAT, is there a difference between GMAT and CAP, and CAT, and the in form in a wiki? One is curriculum, second is the paper pattern. How much extra, for example, if I'm preparing for CAT, how much extra effort is required for appearing for GMAT, and if you can touch upon those lines as well.
Sure. So I think I probably jokingly tell this, to a lot of people that the CAT is more tactical and the GMAT is more fundamental, right? So, I mean, so people question that, why math and English? And I say that, your ability to decipher data and make sense out of it, and then communicate it in a language, which is commonly accepted. So the two fundamental, disciplines which you need to probably understand is math and then verbal. But we're talking about how the GMAT is probably a little different than the CAT is we've got 4 sections as well. So we've got quant reasoning, we've got verbal reasoning, we've got analytical writing ability test, and we've got the integrated reasoning test. Okay. So the quant and the verbal forms your score, your raw score out of 800, your absolute score out of 800, and you get a raw score, which is again different. And then you have your grading for IR and your AWA, which is besides that 800. So I think how the preparation varies is, and why I say that the GMAT is a little more fundamental. For example, part of the quant reasoning is a section, or at least it was back in the day when I was preparing. I'm not privy to if the structure or the methodology or the content of the program has changed. We had something known as data sufficiency, right? In quant, one of the sections, which is basically analyzing if the data given to you is enough to solve a problem, right? It may not necessarily require you to solve the problem, but just to analyze and arrive at a solution that, okay, this data is sufficient, it's partly sufficient or not sufficient, right? So I think this is very fundamental to conducting business. And Rinkesh, who works with McKinsey, will tell you that, when he talks with clients, all he has is questions, right? And those questions are often answered not verbally, but by data sets. His clients will give him a set of data. So I think his ability to decipher that becomes more fundamental rather than tactical. How do you prep for the GMAT? Coming to the second leg of your question, I think, and again, same in verbal reasoning. You've got sentence correction, and you've got your comprehension, your reading comprehension, your ability to read a passage and make sense out of it, critically and evaluate it. And, are you answering what is being asked? Are you able to understand what is being communicated? Very fundamental to conducting business or even life for that matter, right? Which is why I say that the GMAT is way more fundamental than the CAT, and CAT is a little more tactical. That, there's probably CAT has Vedic math and your number ability, your ability to probably understand a little bit of basic integration and differentiation, which of course you also need all kind of math abilities for the GMAT, but which is why I think that engineers have a bit of an edge while writing the CAT, right? and you see a disproportionate number of IITians at the IIMs. I mean, of course, we've also got a lot of IITians at the Indian School of Business. But to cut it short and to answer the second leg of your question, how do you prep for GMAT? I think I would like to borrow what Rinkesh said, and I think he put it very beautifully, that it varies from person to person and it depends on how confident you are. I think having said that, probably a disciplined, structured approach is the number one way to conquer the exam. Is to if you can set a schedule, if you can identify which aspects of your testing capabilities need enhancement and what are your strongest suit, I think that's more important. So I think that's very critical, and setting aside time and schedule. As far as the curriculum is concerned, I mean, of course, taking a mock test or two will definitely help. So maybe your starting point is taking a mock test and ending your preparation also is a mock test. But in between, there's a whole bunch of other activities which you need to do. So the Graduate Management Admission Council, the GMAC, which conducts the GMAT exam, has issued a guide known as the official guide or the OG. I think that's a beautiful guide. If you can study that in a disciplined approach and not try to do as much as you can, but do it in a very structured way, aim for accuracy and efficiency as opposed to quantity to begin with. That's a very fundamental approach to solving the GMAT and getting ready for the exam.
Understood. Understood. Fair enough. Okay. Okay. So once you appear for your exams, how much time would it take to get the result? Like how many days do they take to announce the result for GMAT and then for CAT?
You get your result the moment you finish. You click on submit, you get your result. So at least that's what it used to happen back in the day. I'm sure. I'm not fully sure if that's what happens right now. But I think it must be the same. But you finish your exam and you can see your assessment score in shortly. So
And what is the frequency of GMAT? Frequency?
You can take it whenever you want. You can schedule your GMAT for next month if you want. So that's the beauty of the exam. And you can also reappear for the exam. Although I'm not sure, I think it's 21 or 14 days. I'm not fully sure. There has to be a minimum gap of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which is something which you can check on the GMAT website. And you can't reappear for that exam within a gap of 15, 20 days. But otherwise, you can go to the GMAC website or visit GMAC. I think that was the website. And you can select a slot. It's like booking an airplane ticket. So you can select that this is the day I want to take my exam. This is the slot, the time slot which I want to do. This is the test center which I want to choose. So it's way more fundamental and easier to take the exam.
And if you can touch upon the exam fees, maybe a rough figure.
I don't remember exactly, but I think it was either $200 or $250. I am not fully sure. So maybe
16,000 rupees, 16 to 20,000.
Or 20,000 Indian rupees. I am not. It was either 200 or 250. I think one of the two. I think it's 250 right now. I think it was either 250 back in the day or 200. I will have to.
Understood. What is the scene in CAT?
CAT, I think the results take a month's time.
Okay.
But because I think they scale scores, make it relative, you get percentiles, etc. And the fees is around, I guess, $1,000. So yeah.
Understood. Understood. So once you appear for CAT or GMAT respectively, you get your results. Then first we'll touch upon CAT. You get your results. Then how does the process of applying in different colleges, or they give us a call, or how does that go basis on your scores?
Yeah. So CAT score is accepted by a lot of institutes, but specifically for the IIMs, so at the time of filling your CAT application form, you have to choose basically the colleges that you want to apply to among the IIM family.
There's no restrictions in number of colleges you can apply?
No, not at all. So obviously a smart person would apply to all colleges in the form, and not like just IME or IMB or IMC. Yeah. You apply to all colleges, and then eventually the score gets all the IIMs receive your scores.
Okay.
And then before your CAT exam, you need to also apply to other colleges, like let's say, like whatever your target colleges are. For example, SP Jain is there, MDI Gurgaon is there, and so on. So these are private colleges which also accept CAT scores. So you apply to, and all of these accept CAT scores only before your CAT exam, or I guess before your CAT result. I think it's CAT exam because if your CAT exam doesn't go as planned, you'll obviously not apply to your colleges, and these colleges obviously want you to apply before you make any sense of how your CAT goes. So so you need to apply for all the target colleges before before taking your CAT. And once you have sort of applied, then these colleges get your CAT scores. And then I think within a week or two of the CAT result, they start giving shortlists as per their criteria. So you'll find every college has a different criteria, even among the IIMs, IMA, MBC, LKI, everybody, gives different weightages for, shortlisting for interviews. So I guess you can just go to their site, and there's it's very quantitative, like 20% score goes to your class 10 score, 10% goes to your class 12 score, 30-40% goes to your CAT percentile, 30-40% goes to, let's say, your 20% work X, and it just varies among IIM to IIM. But you have to sort of, you just look at their site and you try to make sense out of the scoring pattern. And after, I think 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, you get calls, and the interview process gets started after that. And based which city do you select, your interview gets scheduled, let's say, in a span of, I guess, 2.5 months. So if you select, I think for IMA, if you select Ahmedabad is the first city where they interview. In fact, Western region is the first where they interview, and they end in the Eastern region. I'm from Calcutta. I chose Calcutta as my interview center, and it happened like 2.5 months after, I got my CAT result. So that's the story.
So you chose Calcutta as a center for appearing for the interviews, right?
Correct.
I got it right. So in the center, I got you right?
Yeah.
So in the Calcutta center, all the colleges, like all the people who take the interviews, they come to the center and then they take interviews. Is that so?
All the colleges, no.
I
So
think
basically, you get a chance. So it's not like Calcutta is a center for all the IIM interviews. After the IIMs come out with the shortlist, they ask your preference city where you want to be interviewed. In the form, you fill it up, and then interviews happen.
okay.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks from the result, you start to get calls and emails from the colleges that you have been shortlisted, and
Correct.
they'll ask for a center where you can go
And
and apply.
they ask for basic details,
Right.
Again, they would ask your scores. Some colleges might also ask for a statement of purpose. Let's say IIM Bangalore asks for a statement of purpose.
Okay.
So from college to college, the process differs, but just very basic level, every college will ask you just to fill up a very short form, giving which is a repetition of sort of what you write in your CAT application form as well. Score of class 10, they ask you to upload transcripts also. And then you're given a choice, I think, among 6-7 cities where you want your interview to take place. I don't know, right now they might be flexible with a virtual interview also, given COVID has made us very welcoming
And
to
is there
virtual.
an application
Yeah.
fee involved for applying in colleges? No application.
The application fee is just the CAT
Understood.
form. Yeah.
Understood. So before getting on the interviews which happen at IIM, I would like to switch to Manuraj on you get your results immediately, right? You click submit button, you get your results. What happens after that?
So you mean what do you do with your score? I think it's
Yeah.
completely up to you. You can choose to apply to a university.
Okay.
So I think you get your score, you can go home. You might have already applied to a university, and you may be due for submission of your test scores, which is why you took the test. Or you can start by taking the GMAT. You take the GMAT, and then you go to a university, and you go to you fill out the application form. Usually, you select a business school, and then you apply for them, and then they reach out to you saying that now you need to take your GMAT, and that's when you do it. So I think a lot of my classmates, what they did is they applied to the Indian School of Business. They filled out the application, wrote a preliminary essay, which I think Rinkesh called the Statement of Purpose or SOP. We don't call it the SOP, we call it an application essay. And then the university, without any test scores, either selects or rejects and moves you to round number 2. At least that's what I remember from back in the day. The process may have changed, and I'm happy to talk about the updated process if there is, in fact, one eventually. I'm not privy to it right now. And then you take the test and you submit your test scores, and then there is a round 3. So that's the whole journey.
Okay. So I think this is very interesting and very new to me, at least, that you apply in ISB before giving exams, and if you get shortlisted, you appear for the exams. So is there a minimum criteria ki, okay, you only have to, pass the exam, let's say, and then you will move to round three, or there are some like merit list sort of things, like how does
Okay.
that work?
Got it. So there are two things. First is when I mentioned that you can take the test score, go home and apply, or you've applied somewhere and a test score is due. So when you take the GMAT gives you the option to, on the day of the exam, send your test score to 5 universities around the world. I think it's 5 or 6. I'm not fully sure. It's been a while. It's been a few years I took my GMAT. So I think it's 5 universities. You can send it to them free of cost. So you can select drop down. So you can say Harvard, Stanford, Kellogg, Wharton, ISB. You can choose 5 universities. So and London Business School, you name it, whichever you want to send to. And I think globally, all business schools, except for most in India, accept the GMAT. If not all, I think a majority of them, right from your Harvard and Stanford of the world to London Business School and all of those, ATC. So you can choose 5 and you can send it to them free of cost. If you choose to send it separately or eventually, I think there is a cost associated with that. I'm not sure. I think it's $30 or $50. I'm not fully aware. I mean, I don't recollect fully. I had sent it to a few colleges free of cost on the day of my exam. So, and I don't remember which those colleges were. I think it was London Business School. It was ISB, of course, #1 priority, and a few other schools. Sorry, what was your second question?
So Mala, how does that go? Like, you just need to pass
Okay.
those exams, or is there a merit list sort of?
So there is no passing percentage per se. So I think what Rinkesh mentioned, that there's a weightage assigned to your 10th and your 12th and your SOP and your extracurriculars. And so I think your evaluation at the Indian School of Business is way more holistic. So they evaluate your profile and your candidature in a way more holistic manner. So there is no cutoff. So while I agree with Rinkesh that the holisticity of your profile matters, but if you have a 90 percentile in the CAT, it's almost a 100% chance that you wouldn't get a call from IIM Ahmedabad, right? So while the holisticity factor exists in IIMs, you still have to probably get that 99.99 or 99.5, right? So whereas at the Indian School of Business, and this is not to say that a better test score is better. Of course, anything more if more is always better than less if less, right? So a better score definitely helps you, but there's no cutoff or there is no determining factor, right? So there are people with GMATs ranging from across the board, and how well merited are you in your candidature will have uh, a better evaluation criteria compared to just your test score. And your test score is just part of your profile, and there is certainly a certain amount of weightage attached to it, but I'm not privy to the entire mechanism on what percentage of weight is assigned to the GMAT or your 12th or your leadership positions or your corporate experience, your curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular, your international exposure. So there's a whole bunch of things which the holisticity of your candidature is evaluated, and GMAT is a part of that. So there is no cutoff per se. So yeah.
Understood. Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think IIMs way back, they had sort of, just a fixed criteria. For example, now I'll talk about the admission criteria for IIM Ahmedabad. So even like, even after you get a 99.9, I know people who did not get calls from IMA. Because IMA now, what they follow, at least during my time, I think it must have evolved also. So they have different buckets. So your competition for getting into IIM Ahmedabad in particular is not with everyone. So for me, my competition was only with CAs, because IIM Ahmedabad, they have like a separate category for professional courses. So they give a call, let's say if they roll out 600 calls for interview for 300 seats. So they will give a minimum, not a minimum actually, on an average, they usually roll out 50 calls to CAs. So basically, if you're in a pool, like let's say 1,000 CAs appear for CAT, and among those 1,000 CAs, 50 CAs which suit IIM Ahmedabad's criteria, they basically get called. Similarly, they have a separate category for engineering courses. So they have a separate category for people who are doctors. They have a separate category for engineers. So they just want to ensure that the diversity is maintained. So I had friends in my batch who, who had calls from the college, who converted the college actually, obviously, at 90 percentile as well. So in that way, I think the IIMs are also now trying to, revamp their criteria, allow more diversity in their colleges. So yeah, so I don't think that the traditional thinking that only that you have to get a 99.9 to get into IME is completely relevant. It's relevant if you are in that, in that engineering stream uh, or maybe rather in the engineering stream only. But if you're not if you're not an engineer, then I think you can play around. You can see the criteria. It must be there on the website. It will become clear. So it's not as hard, or difficult to get into the college as people think it to be. Yeah.
Understood. Understood. Fair enough. One last question on this part. Other than a bachelor's degree, obviously, is there any other eligibility criteria for getting into IIMs? ISB, I'm sure there are some more additional conditions, but are there any other conditions in IIM at least? Other than a bachelor's degree, obviously.
No, I think bachelor's degree is, yeah, that's it. I
That's
don't think there's any other eligibility criteria.
okay. Is the case otherwise in ISB, Manuraj?
So, I mean, I think, of course, a bachelor's degree is necessitated. Besides that, I think 24 months of work experience is something which the candidate should have at the time of enrolling for the program. So when you apply for the
24 months
program,
of experience.
24 months, correct, about
Okay.
2 years. So when you apply for the program, you may not have 2 years, and that's okay. And the school offers something known as the Young Leadership Program, which is an entry route to the PGP class. So when you are, I think, in your pre-final year, I did not take that route, so I am not fully aware of the details. But I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for all young leaders who are in the second year of college, I believe 19 or 20 years old with zero work experience, that they can secure a deferred admission. And it's a leading program in the country and probably in Asia, wherein you can secure your seat at the prestigious PGP program at the Indian School of Business after you work for 2 years and then join the cohort. So you can study
You need
alongside.
to go through GMAT, like you have to appear for GMAT, like when
Or
you
you
are.
can, right, either GMAT or the GRE.
Okay, understood. Okay. So once you get calls and everything is scheduled, how does an interview in IIM looks like? Like what are the questions they ask, and what is the parameters on which they evaluate, and how does that go for you, Rinkesh?
I think interviews again are very, very subjective. So during my interview process, I remember I had bucketed into like 4 categories that I need to prep for. One is like you need to be aware about yourself, who you are, what's your background, why do you want to, let's say, do an MBA, what your hobbies are. And when I say what your hobbies are, you need to be, you need to know what your hobbies are, because sometimes the professors, they just want, so basically the interviews are basically professors or alums of your colleges. So given, so sometimes they also delve so deep into your hobbies that you need to be aware about. So they just make sure that you are aware about yourself as a person. So that's the first bucket. Second bucket was academics, obviously. So, and which is very important in case of freshers who just go right after, let's say, CA or their graduation degree. So being very strong with your ACADS, when I said ACADS, like you should know what you have done in your graduation. Let's say if you're a BCom honors grad or an economics honors grad, you should know what's the law of demand, what's elasticity, etc. So they test you on that. Third bucket, which might not be applicable for everyone's work experience. If you have work experience, you have to prepare for that. You should know your company, what your role is, what you did, etc. And fourth bucket is to be aware of, you need to be aware of your what's happening in the world, uh, in your country, etc. So which I call which is basically being good at GK. So you should be aware of the latest issues that's happening. In my time, I think I appeared for my interview in March 2020, and COVID had just started making sort of had just peeped into India, I guess. 15th March, yeah, 15th March was my interview, and 22nd March was the lockdown. So I had, they asked me questions on what do you think COVID would do, etc. Do you think COVID would bring a lockdown? And seven days after that, it was a lockdown. So, so, so just wanted to be very structured in my interview process preparation, because the interview can be in any of the 4 categories, or maybe there can be a 5th category. But I try to be very exhaustive and make sure that I cover my prep in in these 4 categories. But then at the time of interview, the question that you get asked will depend on the kind of professors are there in your panel. So for example, in my IIM Ahmedabad interview, there was a organizational behavior prof and one was a law prof. So naturally, they will not ask me questions related to or so on. And again, it's upon you as well to, sort of give the interview a direction. I wanted to talk about my work ex. I wanted to talk about what I like, my interests. So I diverted my interview to those angles.
Understood.
So you need to be smart to just steer the interview in your favorable direction. Yeah.
And typically, what is the duration of an interview? Like usually, what is the
On an average, the interviews, they get conducted for almost 30 minutes, 35 minutes, can go for 40, 45 minutes, depends on, the panel, but on an average, 30 to 35 minutes.
Understood. Understood. Manuraj, is the case same for the interview part at ISB? Is it
So
similar?
it's I mean fundamentally yes, but there's a slight difference. So first I'll touch upon my personal interview experience. So my interview had 3 panelists. All 3 of them were ISB alums. So they'd done the PGP program from the Indian School of Business. So I think the methodology or the idea that ISB follows is that people who've graduated from the program are the best people to select the people who would form part of the cohort, which is something which I fundamentally very admire. And the schools followed that principle. So touching upon my interview, they asked me a case study on WeWork and its valuation model, because I came from that background of front-end corporate banking. And after that, I had spent some time at the London School of Economics, one of the summers. I think it was in the same year. So they asked me about my time at LSE and what did I learn about the education system there versus here, and more fundamental nitty-gritties about an institution like Oxford LSE versus a more business-oriented, a more hands-on experience university, right? So that was the conversation was around that. And I think the ISB panel, again, it can be very subjective. It depends on, who's your interviewer, what's your profile, what are your aspirations, why are you in that interview? But I think to summarize, I think what I call the 4I model is something which I thought they follow, and which is intelligence, integrity, intent, and idea. So how do you perceive a combination of this, and how prudent would you be in conducting business eventually? How would you be as a future business leader and a member of the society, is something which the panel tries to test upon. And I think that was something which was tested upon in my interview. It was a beautiful conversation. I really enjoyed chatting with all of them. As far as duration, I'm not fully sure how long an interview could be. Again, it depends on who you are, who's your panelist. But I think a typical duration is about 40, 45 minutes. My interview was probably close to an hour, if I can remember correctly. But yeah.
Understood. Understood. Okay. So once you are through there was only one single round of interview, right?
Correct.
One interview. So post your interview, what happens? Like how many days do they take to communicate as to whatever the final result is? And then what happens next? What is the next step? Let's say, what is the next step then?
Right. So you've got the entire application cycle, starting with applying to the program and writing your what generic terms is called the SOP. We call it the application essay, which with a specific topic, and you submit your application. Second step is your GMAT and test scores, and you write about your employment, where you're working, your profile, all of that. And your third step is a personal interview. And after the personal interview, your results are announced via email. You're sent an email, as well as on the application portal of the Indian School of Business. You can see that this is your application number. You've been selected or not selected, or you've been waitlisted. Okay. And accordingly, then you secure an admission. You say that I accept the terms of joining the program, and you've got a certain number of days. So yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you have any queries, you can. There's an email ID. You can reach out to the school. They're extremely prompt and helpful. I remember I called up the school a couple of times, and I said, these are my concerns and queries, and they were extremely prompt in, guiding you and helping you every step of the way. So it's a very simplified, self-explanatory process. The moment you download the application form and you start filling it, it's like, we got it from here sort of a mentality. We'll take care of you. So that nurturing begins the moment you apply.
Understood. Rinkesh, let's say in a span of, so you must be, we get selected for interviews in, let's say, 3 or 4 colleges in a span of a week or so. We appear for all the colleges in the interviews of all the colleges. Now what happens? Like let's say, we appear for 4 interviews, out of which 3 colleges selected us. So how do you select? Like what happens? Like like all the 3 colleges select, and then you choose which college you want to pursue, or how does that work?
Yeah, so every institute that you have interviewed with will, so basically the interview, your results are out in January. Jan, Feb, March are the months of interview. April 1st or 2nd week, all IIMs and other colleges, they start releasing their final admission lists.
Together,
So
more or less together.
not
The list.
together, so it will differ college to college. So, but this is the time window when April 2nd week to April 4th week,
Okay.
most of the colleges, they come out with their admission results,
Okay.
final sort of list of admissions, including the waiting list. So depending upon, where you want to go, etc., you accept the college. There's also a time window where you can withdraw your admission. So let's say if you wanted to go to IMA, but you're waitlisted at IMA, but you have gotten into IML, so you accept IML just to make sure that you have,
Something in your hand.
you get enrolled into a program. But then again, if you clear like let's say if you clear the waitlist at IMA, you can withdraw your admission at IML and then eventually enroll into IMA. But that again would depend upon the specific terms and conditions of that particular institute, when you can withdraw your application, how long before you can withdraw it, etc. So yeah.
Any timelines attached to in how many days you have to, accept or reject the final admission?
Again, that would be very specific to colleges, and IMA it was, I guess, 3 weeks of time to
Okay. You have ample amount.
accept or reject the offer.
Understood.
And then they come out with the, then how many, depending upon how many people accept the offer, then they eventually pull into the waiting list. So yeah.
Understood. So you get your results, you choose the college, you do all the administrative work of, submitting documents, and all those things happen. One thing, if you could, quickly touch upon, is the fee structure at IIM and then the fee structure in ISB. Rinkesh first.
So IMA for a 2-year program cost, I think the cost was 24 or to 25 lakhs for
For
2
both
years.
the years total.
For 2 years total, including accommodation, etc., food, etc. You'll have to take care of that.
Okay.
But for a 2-year residential program, it was 25 lakhs. IMA, B, C, I think are somewhere in the same range.
Okay.
I'm L, and other
Cool.
institutes I'm not really sure of. Yeah.
Understood. So 25 to 30 lakhs, 20 to 30 lakhs is
25 lakhs, I think, is
25.
the
Understood.
max I think any IM would charge, yeah, for 2 years.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. And Manuraj, what is the case in ISB?
I think it's somewhere, or rather, it was somewhere, in the range of 35 to 40 lakhs, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It might have slightly gone up. I mean, of course, there's inflation, so it might have, corrected for that.
Right.
But I think, yeah, that was the ballpark back in the day, 35 to 40, and it must be probably 40 or 42 right now. And yeah.
Okay. So because this figure is quite it can be quite heavy for a lot of people. So if you could just very quickly touch upon, I think there are a lot of student loans available which you get very easily, which you have to pay back once you get a job post MBA. So there is no financial burden, at least of the fee part, right? So if you could very quickly touch upon any one of you.
Sure. So I think so there are two aspects to this. One, I will answer a more fundamental approach, and then I will touch upon how do you not get under financial burden. So I think there's a certain amount of bias when people talk about the fees being expensive and looking at ROI very tactically. I think ROI again is a very dehumanized way of approaching this whole concept. if you say that you will study at the B school for a year, you will pay 35 to 40 lakhs or 45 lakhs, and then you will only work for 1 year, and you will not work for the rest of your life. I understand ROI matters then. I spent 40 lakhs, I made 40 lakhs in a year, I am even. My return on investment was 1x. But at that accentuated salary, you will probably work for 30, 35 years, right? So that is step one. Second approach is, would you continue to draw a salary that you hadn't been drawing if you did not go to that B school, right? So that salary accentuation happens because you went to that B school. Otherwise, you were probably working at a salary which was 30 or 40% of your post MBA salary, right? So that is step two. Third is, were you equipped with all the skills, the network, the capabilities, the ideas, the thoughts that you are now, which you weren't until you went and pursued a B school education? I think you weren't. The answer is a no, right? So I think if the answer to all these things are strung together, looking at this investment in terms of a financial burden, honestly, what I spent on my MBA in terms of tuition, living cost, everything, I have recovered all of it by some distance. I'm not even saying that I recovered just my tuition and my living. I recovered much more than what I already invested. So whether you invested via a loan, or you self-finance it, you have your savings, or you have an endowment from your parents or somebody, irrespective, I think it's a great investment. And coming back to the student aid program, the school in itself runs several student aid programs. One is merit-based, the other is need-based, and there are multiple other programs and opportunities for students to secure scholarships at the Indian School of Business. Besides that, I think each and every bank in the country will give you a loan instantly the moment you say that you're going to the Indian School of Business, or I am Ahmedabad, or I am Bangalore, or I am Calcutta. These are all called grade A schools in the banking list that they have. So I don't think financing per se should be a problem to any student who's looking to, go to an IIM or an ISB. So
Understood.
And I'll just add to that. I think in addition to that, during your MBA, you get tons of opportunities to sort of, reduce your student loan. For example, out of the 25 lakhs, I almost covered 10 lakhs during my 2 year at IME. And how did I do that? Obviously, you have an internship, summer internship, 2 month summer internship that you get paid. Being there like all the year round competitions that get organized. So if you prep for it, you compete in it, and if you win it, you get some amount from them. And then again, depending, and there are various banks or like various companies also come during on the campus just to promote their names, and by means of that they roll out scholarships similar to a competition, but they don't call it a competition. For example, there's Citibank scholarship that comes to IME every year, and they select 2-3 students based on an interview, etc., and they give you, I think, 5 to 7 lakhs for that particular scholarship, which is to be utilized towards payment of your fees. So I guess after you enter into college, you get ample opportunities to also reduce your student loan. So I don't think there's an issue with respect to the amount that they charge. Yeah.
Okay. So going through the rigorous process, right from CAT to interview to all these things, paying big money and stuff. Rinkesh, how was your day one at IIM Ahmedabad, and how was it? Like, you got in, was classes scheduled at right bang on your day one, or how was your first week in IIM Ahmedabad? If you could touch upon that, then we'll
My
move
day
to
one at IIM Ahmedabad was not in IIM Ahmedabad. It was it was my room on my bed with my laptop, because it was COVID, and I did not imagine that the day that I would start my classes at IIM Ahmedabad, I would be in Calcutta in my room. So that was very sad from that angle. But again, I think uh, if I we had our the first day we had our sort of welcome ceremony, etc. All of it was virtual. My entire first term was virtual, because like 2020 was not meant to be in person, I guess. But then eventually they opened doors in November, and they gave an option to the students to come to campus, and it was an option and not a necessity, because the classes were still conducted online. But then they gave an option so that we could, as a batch, bond together. And obviously, I grabbed that option as soon as it came. So I would rather say that was my first day at IIM Ahmedabad, when I actually met the people with whom I interacted over video calls, etc. And it was really very nice to be in that college where you have aspired to be for so long. So that
Yeah.
gives you a very sense of, satisfaction and you feel very happy, just to put it out very bluntly. You feel very happy to see yourself there. So yeah, it was quite exciting for me, and I loved every moment there. Yeah.
Understood. And what was the case for you, Manuraj? I think you appeared with, like, it was in pre-COVID zone, right? Like both the
You know,
years.
I'm also from the batch of 2021. So when I started my ISB journey, we had something called the Digital Head Start module, or the DHM, which is a practice which is continued at the Indian School of Business. I'm not sure if current batch also has it. So we have a Head Start module, DHM, and basically the idea is that students can get equipped with building resiliency and circumstances which may be outside your circle of influence, right? And I think COVID is probably one of those black swan events. So my experience, again, ISB puts in a lot of effort to make sure that all the classmates bond. There are multiple groups, there are multiple societies or other clubs, and you have section wars. So I did my first digital head start module, and then my terms began on campus. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was September when I went to campus. And unfortunately, I got as much time on campus as any other ISB batch because the school deferred the program, and instead of 8 terms, made it 10 terms, so that every ISB student in the history of ISB gets to spend the same amount of time on campus. And we were all there, and we had a ball of a time. And not just that, like you learn to be more resilient, you learn to be more patient, you learn to be you develop the skill sets that's required to come out stronger. And I remember one of my professors used to say that, when there is something happening outside, by outside, he meant outside the campus, which is either a recession, which is either a pandemic, the best place to hide is business school. Because by the time the pandemic or the recession phases out, not just are you in a better society or, like physically safer environment, financially safer environment, but you're also equipped with way more knowledge, skills, and network to be out there. But day one that I landed on campus, I think I was extremely overwhelmed. The campus is magnanimous. It's beautiful. All the people with whom I used to, chat, interact, speak with, brainstorm, ideate every single day during my digital head start module. I had the opportunity to meet with them, and like hang out with them. I still remember day one was this on campus. Day two was my OPMG midterm exam. OPMG is operations management. So I think the euphoria of doing all of this, and then also the fear that there's an exam next morning, but it's all part of the B school rigor and curriculum. So I had a great time. It was some of the best times I've lived.
Understood. Very interesting. So what I've usually heard is, during your MBA, you have to, settle yourself with a sleep of 3 to 4 hours every day, and all those sort of things which we have been hearing about these schools. So Rinkesh, if you could touch upon how does a normal typical day of a B school student looks like in IIM Ahmedabad. Like, it starts with lectures, what time do you get up, what happens next, and all the time till you finally reach your bed to sleep.
Got it. So an ideal day would be, so our classes start at 8:30, and we have 3 classes per day. Each class is about 75 minutes. And so you start with those classes, and there's no like, they are very strict with respect to being punctual. So, and of course you can't choose not to attend the classes, and you need to be prepared. So and it's an entire case based study system at IMA. So you have to do tons of reading before you come to the class, and you have to be prepared because you're also evaluated on how much you participate in the class. So class participation is something which they value a lot, because every subject will have some weightage given to how much you are. No, and it's not just class participation. You can't just do a DCP, which we call DCP is basically, we call it like a desperate class participation to get marks. But obviously the professor needs to feel that you're adding value to the discussion that's going on. So this happens. So I guess from 8:30 to, I guess, 12:30, we had our classes. We then just quickly grab lunch, and then we used to wait, because we have surprise quizzes in the throughout our course at IMA, throughout our time at IMA. So on 1:45 was the time for the quiz, and we used to wait for, and we used to get a text, let's say at 1:30, if any quiz is going to happen or not. So we used to wait for the text, etc. 1:30, 1:31. No, if there's no text, we just used to, let's say, get back to other work. And if there's a quiz, we had a quiz. We sort of took the quiz, and after that, let's say, then you start on with your other activities, which is depends upon which time of the year or which time of the term you're at. So if you're in a first term, your first term is extremely busy because you have your summer internship prep going on. You need to prepare CVs, you need to apply to companies, you need to also enroll into, there are tons of clubs in every B school. So you can choose to be part of, and these are all student run clubs. So you apply to those clubs if you want to be part of you, and if you have become a part of those clubs, you work for those clubs. For example, I was a part of the consult club, as part of dance club. So you make friends there. You, let's say, for dance club, we used to practice when we were in campus. Obviously, we used to do practice sessions thrice a week. We used to bond there, etc. After that, so time majorly goes there, and then you can choose to also take up business competitions, etc. Work towards that. So it's entirely upon you how much you want to have on your plate. And then usually nights were more about, again, prepping for next day's classes. Some days it was about partying with your friends, going out. So obviously you can choose to have, like, let's say 6-7 hours of sleep if sleep is priority to you. But again, you
Understood.
can also choose to have, you can just balance out things. Yeah.
Right. Understood. Understood. Fair enough. So going through, all the, hard entrance, then, spending 2 hours, hustling for 2 years, finally you're done with your MBA. So first, Manuraj, how is your life different from a pre-MBA? Like how the life of a pre-MBA Manuraj and a post-MBA Manuraj, if I can say so, is, what is the difference, and what do you feel in yourself in terms of, maybe as a person in your career, obviously, and if you can touch upon that, your life post MBA.
Right. I think the short answer is a definitive yes, and there's an absolute difference, and more than a difference, I would say it's a journey of transformation. So I think the 1 year that you spend on campus, the 1 year that you spent with your cohort, your classmates, your professors, your teaching associates, and everybody associated with the curriculum and the school and the program, help you transform in your journey, and they help you move one step closer, inch one step closer towards what you want to do in life. Sometimes they will help you identify what is it that you want to do, and then put you on that track. So I think the summary, or the short of it is that there's an absolute transformation, which I think not just me but everybody who's gone to the Indian School of Business can vouch for it, that it is it's a definitive transformation journey that you go through. And for me, I think that 1 year that I had the privilege to be a part of the ISB cohort was a highlight, both personally and professionally.
Understood. Understood. And Rinkesh, how was it for you, post, being in the top college of India for B schools, IIM Ahmedabad, then getting into another, one of the world's most renowned management consulting firm, McKinsey, I think, which is a dream of a lot of MBAs. They actually want to get into McKinsey and then be in BCG. So how was it for you? How did your life change, and what happened with you in McKinsey? It's been, I think, 1.5 years, right? You have spent 1.5 years in McKinsey.
Yeah, I think after my MBA, I did see a change in me, like in myself, in terms of being more confident and putting myself out across the world, having a greater network. So I think now I I can reach out to anyone who is from IMA, not only in my batch. So we have a huge alum base, and just being from IIM Ahmedabad makes, mm, helps you get that connect, or maybe helps you get connected to that person. So yeah, and in terms of my life at McKinsey, I think McKinsey is another small B school in inside, because you'll find most of the people around are again from different B schools. You do projects in consulting, right? You work for one client, your project ends, you then work for the next client with a different set of people. So just like how study group in MBA. So in MBAs, you have study groups every term. At least in IMA, it was there. So, and there the study groups gets changed every term. So it was just like similar to IMA, where now I'm working across different projects with different sets of people, and it's very exciting to solve. And McKinsey is very open to let you solve whatever kind of problem statements that you're interested in. There are tons of problem statements that the firm has, and then you can choose to work or not to work in one sort of particular problem statement, and it's very exciting. I worked across many different sectors, and you just put out your brains there and work with such wonderful people around. And McKinsey parties a lot as well. So yeah.
Right. Understood. Cool. So one last question, which I would want to throw up on you. Then we'll open the session for Q&A. In recent 4-5 months, there are talks that there is a global recession, everything is slowing down, there are hiring freezes and all. So what, especially in consulting, there are hiring freezes is what we have heard. So post MBA, like, is there a change in the placements, and like, are MBB hiring the freshly graduated B school students, or like, how? What is your take on that? Like, can I say that is now the right time to, or we should maybe defer an MBA for a year or so, seeing the job market?
I think now is the definite right time to do an MBA, because obviously the job market right now is not really great. As you rightly said, MBBs have sort of cut down on their hiring targets. But I think this is a cycle, and this keeps on, it's just a cycle. Uh, and again, this is the right time, as Manuraj had, just mentioned, I think at the start. So whenever there's a recession or crisis as such, you go and spend time in your B school. So for example, for us, when COVID had struck, we also thought, the economy will go on a boom, etc. But I think our batch of 2022 saw the best placements ever at IMA. On day one of the placements, I guess 70% of the batch was placed. So I think yes, right now the market might not seem very good. Not that they have stopped hiring completely. They have reduced their hiring targets in terms of numbers. But again, I guess it's a cyclical situation. It will improve, like, let's say, when the economy improves, which my guess is, let's say, in 1 year or so. So yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And
Your takes on that? Yeah, Manu.
I think two things. One is, you're fundamentally right. So I wouldn't, probably say there's a recession, but definitely the funding pipeline, both in venture capital as well as the deal pipeline, in both IB, corporate banking, as well as, in consulting, the project pipeline is drying up a little bit, is what I would say. And this is specifically more for financial consulting, which is reflected in, Bain and Company's global project pipeline, which seems rather a little iffy at the moment. But I think McKinsey, BCG, Accenture strategy continue to be fundamentally stronger, and even Bain eventually, it's just a cycle, like Rinkesh rightly mentioned. And just to put this into context, I think I was recently chatting with somebody, and a junior from who's currently at the Indian School of Business, and he was mentioning that this year I think McKinsey still hired, I think, 30 odd people, and Bain and BCG hired, I think, about 18 or 20 people combined, and Accenture strategy offered a whopping 90 offers, which is 10% of our batch. So I think fundamentally, again, resiliency and shock waves, go hand in hand. But at the same time, the school, make sure, the Indian School of Business makes sure that, you get ample opportunities in whichever field that you want to venture into, consulting being one of them. It could be product management, it could be strategy roles, general management roles, it could be, leadership programs such as the UFLP by HUL, or it could be, investment banking, corporate banking, private equity, venture capital. So there's ample opportunities for everybody on campus at the Indian School of Business. And even in a downward cyclical moment, there's nothing to worry about per se. And like Rinkesh said, this is the best time to be in a business school.
Understood. Fair enough. And I can actually see the glow on, on both of your faces. There is something different about your personalities, and there is some, I'll say, there is some additions in your personalities which I could feel throughout the webinar. So now we'll open the session for the audience to ask their questions. They can feel free to unmute themselves or raise their hands. We'll unmute you from here, and you can also put in your questions in the chat box. By the time, okay, so I'm unmuting Anjali. Yes, Anjali, you can. Anjali, can you speak?
Hello,
Yeah, Anjali, we can hear you.
am I audible?
Yes, we are.
Actually, my